All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, and athletic director. And this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. This is your first time listening. Welcome. We are so glad you found us. This podcast was born out of the content of Steve's 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 15 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today, we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article, where he shares his thoughts after week 21 of the 2024-25 NBA season. Some real interesting points brought up in this week's article. Steve, are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, clock is ticking. We start with what kind of surprised me as I read your article. You essentially picked your pick for the 2024-25 NBA champion from three teams, right? And the three teams are pretty obvious, right? The Cavs, the Thunder, and Celtics. What surprised me was you picked a winner. Who was your pick and why?
Oklahoma City. I just think this is right now. You don't know somebody who sprains an ankle or something that changes. I've watched them for the last couple of weeks, and then I watched the Boston game the other night, and people were criticizing Boston for taking 63 threes in the game. What they don't understand was they really sealed off the paint, and they took away the dribble drive, and Boston had little choice but to take the three. They do overshoot the threes, Boston, but they had to because of how good a defensive team. A couple of things Oklahoma City did that Boston has done to other teams. They've done it to Luka. They pressured their guards up at half court, and it brought the whole offense out. They did some things defensively were good. And the other thing that I was impressed, they just keep coming at you in waves. They've got 8, 9, 10 guys. They just keep throwing at you.
Right.
And they're good. They're just flat out good. They're young. They can shoot. Shea Gilgeous is a great offensive player. So they've got so much now. I'm not overlooking Cleveland, and we should talk about them. Cleveland is a good team. DeAndre Hunter, if he's healthy, he's really a good player. And that just adds to what they have. I'm not sitting here saying that Oklahoma City is going to storm through it and win it, but I think they would beat Cleveland in a tough 7-game series. Don't forget. And the big thing here is also Oklahoma City inexperience in big games, which could come back and bite 'em. But don't forget, Boston and Cleveland played 4 games. They split. They each won a game on the other team's court. And I think there was a 1-point difference in the overall score. So that's going to be a tough 7-game series. I just think Cleveland's depth would be better. But now if Cleveland has to play and Oklahoma City gets to the finals, Cleveland's going to be beat up. That's not going to be an easy series. I just think Oklahoma City's got a lot of advantages in that type series. And you know what the scary thing for the NBA, because they want parity. The scary thing, if Oklahoma City does things right, this won't be their best team. They will get better over the next couple of years because they're so young.
Right.
And scary because then all of a sudden you have one team standing above everybody. Again, though, they're going to have a tough time with Cleveland, and they would have a tough time with Boston. But I just think they're a better best team right now.
Oklahoma versus Cleveland would be a ratings nightmare. Think about it though, right? I mean, those are undeniably right now the two best teams in a dream matchup for basketball fans. But the viewers the NBA wants, the casual NBA fan, it's not going to be particularly excited about Cavs Thunder, are they?
No, it's just the NBA fan. The true NBA fan that loves
Right.
basketball will watch those games. So that could be a problem. And Oklahoma City is just a small market, and they're going to be around this thing for a while. So that's good portent for the NBA. And Cleveland, I don't know if this is a 1-year thing or what. They've got some good pieces, so they're going to. But the problem's going to be they're going to have to start paying guys big money, and so then, like Boston, they're going to have to lose some guys that they can't pay. But they're good. They're a real good team. So it gets very interesting how it's going. How if Oklahoma can handle getting through in the West, honestly, outside of Oklahoma City's way above everybody. But the West, there's a team we'll talk about later, I think Minnesota, but who's coming on appear to be better than everybody else.
Undeniably. Yeah. And since we're on the topic of the West, let's talk about not the Minnesota Timberwolves, but the Los Angeles Lakers. You brought up an interesting point. You called out that Austin Reeves is a great player and he is a great offensive player, to be fair. Laker fans love him out here. They also love Dalton Connect. They see hints of what he can be, glimpses of the player he can be. They're both really good. Yeah, you called out, I think accurately so, that one of them is likely going to have to go during the offseason. What do the Lakers need that one of those two could, hopefully, for the Laker fans, potentially bring them?
They need a legit big man, obviously,
Yeah.
they're not gonna get away if they wanna get a legit, a good, not a journeyman, a good big man. One of those 2 have possibly both have to go. Now,
Wow. Yeah.
their side on their side, well, though Connect doesn't make a lot of money, so I don't know if he would work in that, but on their side or not on their side, the obvious thing here is you only have 1 basketball, and you have LeBron and Doncic. So
Yeah.
when those 2 were playing, even though the Lakers were winning, Reeves's numbers went down. And now Connect, because both of those, the 2 guys, Luka, LeBron and Luka, were out, Connect got to be part of the offense the other night, and he went off. So, with only 1 basketball, and in present day basketball, you need 2 scorers. Yeah, LeBron's near the end. What do you do? And if you take away the ball from Reeves, and he's got to just play defense, you got a problem. He's got to have the ball. And so the Lakers have a decision, and they have to go out and get a big man. I don't know who would be available right now, but they have to go out and get a legitimate big man. And if they do, you're not getting Anthony Davis, but a good big man, suddenly, and Anthony Davis is good, and there's the reason I said it, but suddenly now you're in an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Lakers. We know that you brought up before, right? Any Luka is not a given, right? And
Yeah.
that's going to change everything. But if they're lucky enough to get him to sign, then they've got to build around him, which is also not going to be easy, right? You've got to make some really difficult decisions. And the Lakers have got an interesting offseason ahead of them. I'm gonna backtrack. I don't think I've ever done this in the history of the Shot Clock Pod. I'm gonna go back to the first topic. We already called out accurately who the top 3 teams are. I'm going to ask you a two-parter here.
Sure.
What do you think the percentage is, the likelihood of one of those 3 teams not winning? And who do you think is the top team who's got the biggest piece of the underdog pie, who could sneak in and win it all if it's not one of those 3 teams?
Oh, without them, I guess you have to go with the former champion, Denver, but I'm not impressed with
Yeah.
Denver. They play well one night, worst team in the world, and you have to have some sort of consistency. You can't go with the Knicks because they've struggled against Cleveland, they've struggled against Boston, they've struggled against Oklahoma City. So that gets difficult to go with them. I have to say Denver. I thought until all the injuries hit, Dallas was that team. Um,
Right.
Kyrie was hitting his peak, and Anthony Davis helps you, and they'd have 2 bigs, him and either Lively or Richards, the
Gafford.
Gafford. Richards is the other guy on Phoenix. But, yeah, I thought they would have the best shot, but I guess it would be Denver, and I guess you have to think that Luka would be the reason, not Luka guy, Jokic
Jokic.
would be the reason. Who's yours?
Oh, Denver for sure, because they're coming out strong right now. They've done it before. Because the biggest knock on the Thunder, and you brought it up multiple times, is their youth. We just don't know how they're going to react. Now, I think the win in Boston told us a lot about the Thunder because they don't look like they can be rattled. But it's going to be very interesting. Sorry for derailing things. I
No, no,
just
no.
talking in
Forget
my head. I thought it was an interesting
one
topic.
thing I'm gonna throw back at you. If you look at the standings today, Denver, I believe, second. If they're not second, they're right there.
Yeah.
And take a look at who the number 7 team is, because they would meet in the playoffs.
Oh,
Go ahead.
right. Let's see. In the West,
Yeah.
at the 7 team are the oh wow, the Timberwolves. That's a good team.
Now, what's the history there between the 2 teams from last year?
I don't remember.
Minnesota and Denver in the playoffs.
I don't remember.
I know it's not an LA team, so you don't remember, but Denver got beat by Minnesota.
Okay.
So just put that in the back of your head. And
Okay.
Minnesota's
Okay.
in great basketball. But that just
Interesting.
yeah.
The best time of the year, short of the trade deadline, I think this is the best time when the teams are jockeying for position. We're getting playoff ready. It's exciting to be a basketball fan right now. Let's move on. We got two other things to talk about. Time is winding down. Our shot clock is winding down. You shouted out two teams that are trending in the right direction, the Minnesota Timberwolves, coincidentally, and the Washington Wizards. Let's talk about the Wizards because this is not a team that we talk about much. It's not a team a lot of people outside of Washington talk about much, but they've been pretty good. What's been the difference for them?
I think the bad teams are still going to begin to follow the Detroit model. And what that means is you go out and get a couple veterans with your young players, and they will
Yeah.
bring them along. Look what Detroit did with Hardaway and Beasley, and they brought them in, and they have helped the younger players grow. What the Washington did this year at the deadline was they brought in Middleton and Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart, say what you want, he plays the game one way to win. That's rubbed off. And he's done some things at the end of games, what I've watched, that have changed games with pressure and defensive things that he's done. So that, and they've got a little bit of a nucleus of decent players. Their big guys getting better, Sar. Nice, Kalabi's out for the year, but he's a player. Carrington can play a little bit too. So they've got a nucleus. And they're going to get another draft pick this year. But what the new blueprint is for teams that are going down the tubes is bringing some older, experienced players. And let's face it, Smart and Middleton, they got, I know they gave up Kuzma, but they got for very little giving up because nobody wants to pay that. And they need to pay somebody a lot to fit into the salary cap thing. So it works perfectly for everybody. And
Yes.
it's a big thing. All of a sudden, I think they're 6-5 now in their last 11 games because they won yesterday. So that's for a team that was on its way to 10 wins, all of a sudden they're, and you got to play them. And also, what a Marcus Smart does is make you think about defense. And that's what you want to, that's the foundation you want to build, a team that's thinking defense first.
Yeah. And what a good thing for Washington. What a good thing for that franchise to be playing good basketball, like you said, on the heels of probably getting a really good player, maybe even capturing the flag. We'll see how
I
things play out.
I wouldn't go real far, but I read this the other day. Somebody was saying they could be next year's Detroit.
Wow. Okay.
I
Okay.
don't see that. I don't see it, but it's an
All right.
interesting.
Perfect segue because the last topic in the few minutes we have left are the Detroit Pistons. What a great turnaround for them. You called out they won 14 games last season. This season, they're playoff bound and looking really good. They're a fun team to watch. They play the game right. They're in every game, at least that I've watched. I think they're a good team. What do you see as the ceiling for the Detroit Pistons this season if everything falls right for them?
They could finish fourth. I think they're about a game and a half maybe behind right now in fourth place. So they have an outside shot at that behind Indiana and Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Absolute ceiling would be they get into fourth and they win the first round. I don't see it. I think they'll go out, but no matter what they do, it'll be a great year.
Yeah.
If they finish sixth, I'll just say this. If they finish sixth, they would play the Knicks. What's interesting about that is they beat the Knicks twice in New York, which makes that series very interesting. I think the Knicks will win, but I think it just makes it, the newspapers have a field day with it because it's a great story. And the Knicks are in that uncomfortable position. Whomever Detroit plays, they're in an uncomfortable position that if we lose, my goodness, it will look really bad. So, and they're fun at home. They're real good. And Beasley's having the season, I think he's around 43, 40%, 44% from three. I'm not positive on that. He might even be higher, but he's having a tremendous year. And Kate Cunningham has emerged as a star, and he should be an all NBA player for second or third team.
Yeah. Undeniable. I took a pause. The alarm went off. We just didn't hear it. That's on me. But I, I was a little surprised to hear you say with certainty that the Knicks would beat the Pistons. Do you think it would be an easy series?
No, it'll be tough. And not Injury wise, you don't know. Last year they broke down in the playoffs, the Knicks, so that could change everything. But the point being, generally in things like that, quality wins. And the Knicks, I think, they have the two of them, Towns and offensively and Brunson. And Detroit's got Cunningham you can count on. Is there
Yeah.
anybody else you can count on Detroit where you know you're getting something from those two every night?
Right.
I just don't think it's possible. It'll be fun though. It'll be a fun series if they do play.
Yeah. Undeniably, that would be a fun series. All right, like we said, that this is the time of year that we basketball fans love. The jockeying for position, the teams getting ready. Even the teams that aren't going to make it, they're getting ready for the draft. It's a fun time of year. But that's it. You didn't hear the time, but I promise you it went off. Thank you for listening. Make sure to read or watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We will link it anywhere you're watching or listening to this show to get more random NBA thoughts after the week 21 of the 2024-25 NBA season. And please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting. All of that stuff matters. It means a lot to us. Join us next week on the Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. Steve will talk next week.
Take care.
Thanks.